Welcome to the Change Book Podcast. My name is Rachel Best, and this is our co-host.
I'm Nicole Harvick.
And this is the Change Book series. It is the fastest growing self-empowerment book series on the planet.
This spans over 30 countries, and we now bring them all together in a powerful podcast destined to change people from all corners of the globe.
So go ahead and grab your pen and paper because our guest today is going to share a lot of amazing tips and inspiration that you're definitely going to want to write down.
Good morning and happy Monday, everyone. This is the Change Book Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Harvick, and I am so glad you're here. Every Monday, we bring you another amazing author, and today is no different. So who we have today, we have Alan Mikolaj. And I've been practicing his name, so I didn't make a mess of it. So I wrote it out literally how you told me to pronounce it. So did I do okay?
Fabulous, Nicole.
Yay, that starts a Monday off on a good foot. So how are you this morning, Alan?
I am absolutely fabulous. Thank you. And how are you?
You know what? I'm doing really, really well. I always look forward to these, and I know you and I have had a chat before, but it's always so interesting to get an insight on the why of things and how they came about. So I want to ask you, what made you pick the Change Book?
Well, I opened my private practice almost 2 years ago. And the first year I knew I was going to be heads down in developing a particular program called the Purpose-Driven Leadership Program. But that goes back to my why. I'm on a mission to partner with like-minded leaders who want to make a positive difference in the world. And so part of that delivery was this Purpose-Driven Leadership Program. And as I was wrapping up the first course of that, Vipin reached out to me through LinkedIn and identified me as a potential co-author. And I just thought, what an amazing way to spread that message, right? And to reach as many people as possible. And so I jumped in, right away.
Good. I'm glad you did. And it was the same for me when I, had my first call with Jim Lutz. I mean, it was like, it was my inner voice just saying, you have to do this. You have to do this. And I'm so glad I did, because for me, I really felt like it was a level up, if that makes sense. I've done other books, totally enjoyed it. But at the end, when the book was no longer for sale and the whole hoopla was over, it's like everyone's scattered. Now, the Change Book is completely different. We all keep in touch through our Facebook community of over 1,500 strong. So it's, and through this podcast. So to me, it's really it was an amazing choice for me. And I think you would agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've written 3 other books, 2 textbooks for paramedics and emergency medical professionals. But the third book I wrote, they're right up over there on the left side on the screen.
Right, left.
A travel guide to leadership. And like you said, I immediately saw the value in the community that we have, in the reach, in terms of audience, and sort of the value for us as individuals as well, to build relationships and reach many people and have our life missions and professional missions lived out more fully. It was just, the change has been just awesome.
I think it has too. And what I really love about it is, I don't know about you, but I did a lot of real estate and lending back in the 80s, that greed was good era. And that's just when we were, we were at each other's throats. It was, when I look back, it's like, how did I ever partake in that? And this is a totally different paradigm shift to where I am coming in contact with very heartfelt leadership. And I very much appreciate that. So what was your chapter in the Change Book about?
It was about leading with meaning and purpose. That's the title of the first course of the program. And that's what I was wrapping up at that time. And so I thought, what a great way to take all of this amazing information and kind of summarize it in a 1-chapter version. So that chapter is a taste of what one of the courses in the Purpose-Driven Leadership course is all about.
Okay. And explain purpose-driven leadership. What does that mean to you, and what message do you want to convey with that?
Well, for me, the story of meaning and purpose actually goes back to my early childhood. So,
Wow.
um, I was raised Catholic. I'm not an adherent to the Catholic faith today, but I wasn't just raised Catholic. We were like super Catholic, like on steroids, right?
Mega, mega.
I couldn't have, Nicole, I couldn't have been more than maybe 4 or 5 years old, 6 possibly. But I don't remember being in school when this happened. I think I was playing outside, and my mom, called out my name, Alan Anthony Mikolaj. And whenever a
Oh,
parent,
oh.
uses all 3 names, so I came into the kitchen, I remember, and she got down on one knee and she goes, Alan, what's going to be your vocation? And I'm like, what mother asks a 5 or 6-year-old that, right?
Well, yeah, it would be like, first, what does vocation mean?
Exactly,
With our
exactly.
little limited vocabulary at age 5.
Well, she promptly explained, and then she asked versions of that the rest of my childhood, to the point that when I got to my senior year in high school, at that point, I was exploring, was God calling me to the Catholic priesthood? And I actually ended up entering the seminary for a couple of years,
Wow.
where I discovered that no, that was not God's calling for me. And so I then launched on a journey of discovery on what meaning and purpose was for me. What I believed to be God's calling eventually evolved. But to answer your original question on what purpose-driven leadership is, it's that leader who can leverage their own meaning and purpose, and the meaning and purpose of others around them, and the meaning and purpose of their team and organization. So it's a multi-leveled uh, tapping and leveraging the power of meaning and purpose.
And you know what I love about that is there's not so much anymore, but there's always been a lot of coaches out there that want you to emulate them. Here's how you do it. Here's how you have to say it. Here's what it means. It's not, it's more about their ego than your choice.
Mhm.
So I love the paradigm that you say, purpose driven to find yourself.
Yeah,
So
it gets back to the root of those age-old questions. Who am I, and why am I here? Can I take the time for some deep, hard introspection and find the answers for myself? And then when I've got that identified and clarified, and I can find my voice with that, then how do I help others do that? How do I help others on the team do that? And then how do we do that collectively? And how do we connect that to the organization's core values and mission statement, so that every day we show up with inspiration and focus? And that's the whole reason of purpose-driven leadership. It inspires us. It gets us up in the morning and fired up, ready to go do what we do and serve others. But it also gives us something to lean on in times of challenge, and facing obstacles. I coach or consult with leaders about how to leverage that throughout the program. But I do want to kind of aside to you, Nicole, because I have there on my byline, author, coach, and leadership development expert. And you mentioned coaching and how some coaches come in sort of with an agenda or with a program. I'm an ACC certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, and we do not coach in that fashion. We coach in the fashion that I think you were alluding to, where the client is in the driver's seat 100%. I am there as their servant and partner to help them identify what they want to work on, how to strategize to get there, and then what their action plan is going to be, and how they're going to hold themselves accountable to put that into play.
wow. And that's heartfelt leadership,
Mhm.
because you're extending your heart to theirs is what I believe in. What I've found through my life, my awakening, me discovering me, is that when you go inside yourself and find your true purpose and passion, you're going to go at it 500%. when you're following someone else's lead as to what you should do, it's just not going to sit well. It's not going to feel right. And you might go through the verbiage, you might go through the motions, but if your heart's not behind it, you can maybe make money, but I never felt like, not like a success. It was like I was doing something for money, not what my heart was calling me to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that's most important about it is what we're talking about right now, that both personally and collectively, meaning and purpose is an inspiration for us at a deep level. And like you said, you attack your day at 500%, as you said. But sometimes that's not enough for leaders. And so the actually positive psychology, HR, and organizational development research from big names like Gallup, Korn Ferry, Great Places to Work, have all found that purpose-driven leadership impacts a wide array of metrics for leaders and teams and organizations.
Wow. And I think that's so important. Now, I've heard of some big companies having speakers come in, not necessarily to motivate, but to inspire,
Mhm.
talking about what's inside of you, talking about forgiveness, talking about self-love. Have you seen that happening at all?
Um, when I go and speak to teams and and organizations, it's usually around something like purpose-driven leadership, employee engagement, core values, and so those are some of the big topics. Uh, but I want to kind of get back to this idea of what you're really asking, and is there a shift happening within organizations away from that paradigm you were talking about that was in the 80s to something more authentic and something more inspirational? And the answer is absolutely. But there's just not empirically based quality programs out there, even in big corporations like I used to work in. And so uh, learning and organizational development specialists and LMSs, a lot of people, when they get an assignment, it's just click through the slides and watch. And there's not this engaging and empirically based work that can guide a leader step by step through a process that gets them to outcomes that they can actually leverage in their leadership and with their teams and make an impact like they've never been able to do before. It just takes everything to the next level.
Yeah, as it should. So what was like your epiphany that this was needed and you were the one to do it?
It's hard to identify an epiphany moment for doing this with leaders. For me, that epiphany happened in 1980, at the end of 1986. So I was about 25 years old, about to turn 26 years old.
You were a baby.
I know, right? And I was commuting between a little town called Seguin, Texas, and the north side of San Antonio. Seguin is a bedroom community for the San Antonio area. And I was teaching at the Health Science Center at the time. And this is before audio books in the sense that we hear them today. But I went to the library, and there was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in a big case on audio cassettes, if anybody can remember, cassette tapes. And so I was listening to the 7 Habits, and I drove with a yellow notepad in traffic, and I would kind of write, while so it would be all scribbly. But that's where I first was introduced to this idea that without exception, all highly successful people are committed to a purpose greater than themselves. They all had what Stephen Covey found. And so I went back and wrote my first leadership statement. I still have it. This is like written on that same yellow notepad, except this one is a little more neat. And it wasn't until I started getting many, many years later, back in probably early 2000, where I started connecting it between the personal life and the professional life. And lo and behold, it was about that same time this shift we've been talking about in leadership and in organizations was happening as well. And so the researchers were waking up to that. And so they began to find over the years that it impacts engagement, productivity, retention, even finances. I mean,
Wow.
do you? I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I think it was Great Place to Work, or it may have been Korn Ferry, that identified that organizations that leverage purpose-driven leadership outperform other organizations in the stock market by nearly 7%. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I think that speaks for itself. And you know what I'm seeing is I don't know if you're seeing it. I'm not in corporate. I work for myself as you do, but I'm seeing a lot of people kind of go inside. Who am I? They don't want to be what someone's pushing them to be. They want to be truthful to themselves now. And I think that's a wonderful change, because I think a person that is true to themselves is a leader in themselves. You know, they walk different, they talk different, they glow a little bit differently. And to me, it's brought me kind of a peace of mind, but it's also brought me to a place of I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to bicker. If that's your opinion, you know what? Own it. That's fine. But it's I've not that I have a force field around me or anything, but you don't get to permeate my space with your opinion.
Exactly. And while there was strong movement, both through positive psychology and leadership development research in purpose-driven leadership before COVID, uh, it was at the height of COVID where the dam broke, basically. People, whether they were leaders or not, all over the world began to stop, pause, and say, why am I here? Why am I doing what I do? And is this right for me? And a lot of people woke up to the fact that, hey, what I'm doing is not the calling and greater purpose that I feel for myself and see for myself now. And, for so many of us, that's a spiritual experiencing and awakening as well. And so there was that great resignation that happened, and retention became a problem. And so I think leaders began to wake up as we exited out of COVID that I need to be doing something different. So, what a lot of leaders may not realize is that the foundation, and I mean it is the foundation of finding your life mission and leadership philosophy and core values, will skyrocket everything else. The house of leadership and your team's culture that you're going to build must rest on a strong foundation. We don't want to be building, like the Bible says, on sand, right? And
Right.
so, if a leader wants to elevate every other skill and competency that they're working on, start with meaning and purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, for me, 2020, I had kind of had my awakening in 2017. I was selling health insurance, and you know, I from real estate to lending to health insurance, and I'm just looking at it. I'm like, I know people need it, but in my heart, it didn't feel correct. It just,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
see it as kind of sick insurance, not really health insurance. And I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I took that leap of faith and started honing that person I wanted to be. And instead of living someone else's truth, I'm now living mine. Now, are you seeing, you know, other leaders kind of come to the reality that, my goodness, as you look back, it's like, I'm not saying I wasn't supposed to be there, because I learned a lot from it, but sometimes I'm like, I never saw it while I was in it. I only see it now that I'm out of it. Do
Yeah,
you feel
and
that way as you look back and reflect?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked with so many leaders that just changed their leadership. I mean, one of the greatest rewards that I can hear is a leader who comes back to me and says that I've helped them transform their leadership. But even more impactful for me is they say, you not only positively impact my leadership and transform my leadership, but Alan, you helped transform my life. Because that purpose, meaning, and purpose permeates all aspects of our life, our personal relationships with our partners and our children and our family and our friends and our colleagues, church, members and business associates. It just elevates a person to a new level. And so I want to kind of go back to what you were saying in sort of a preview of your question, was about how you found out that, real estate and selling life insurance wasn't for you. What's really interesting about all of the amazing types of work that we have available to us is that while, for example, being a real estate agent or selling healthcare insurance didn't resonate with your personal calling, I know people who do. I know a real estate agent and a lady who has a life insurance, a health insurance company, and they're passionate and love doing what they do because for them that's their calling. And so the question for us is that I would like to ask anybody watching this right now: have you taken the time that we've just been talking about and said, hey, why am I here? Who am I? Why am I here? And revisit for yourself what your purpose is, and ask yourself if it's time for a realignment. Is it time for me to evolve? And so for many people, you might just say, no, I'm where I need to be. I'm moving along. But for so many people, when they do pause, especially if they do it, if they're spiritual, in a contemplative and prayerful or meditative way, and especially over a period of time, and not just, oh, okay, I'm going to take 30 seconds and then I'm going to go back to the inbox.
Nothing happened. Right? Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. But taking some time to pause and ask yourself that, at least on an annual basis, I think is one of the most healthy things we can do for ourselves. And then what I coach leaders or share in the program too is that once you've been doing that for 3 to 5 years on an annual basis, then you will probably get to a point where you only need to do that once every 3 to 5 years, because you've kind of solidified that for yourself. And I'm talking about everything from your personal core values to your life mission statement. And if you're a leader, adding to that a leadership philosophy statement, the principles of who I am when I'm at my leadership best, and who I aspire to be, and why I'm a leader, those sort of things added to your personal life mission statement. So I encourage leaders in the program to integrate both their life mission and leadership philosophy in one statement. It just makes it so much more convenient and also more powerful.
And I think that is absolutely fabulous advice, because when you look back when you're in high school or even 5 years old, and someone's asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, you know what? I've done so many things, because it was right for me at that time. Mm-hmm. And then in my heart, it's like, this isn't me anymore.
I want to latch on to something you just said, Nicole, because this is so important about the work around meaning and purpose, because that is typically what we ask children. What do you want to be when you grow up? And that's an external thing. We're not really asking them who they want to be. We're asking them, what job role do they want? Do you want to be a firefighter? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a real estate agent? or so? And so that's an outside in thing. And that's not the type of work that gets you to your true, authentic meaning and purpose. It's an inside out thing. Instead of asking ourselves, what do you want to be? It's, who do you want to be? Who are you? Why are you here? Those are deep, introspective. Stephen Covey calls that your deep inner life. He said we all have 3 lives: a public life, a private life, and a deep inner life. And so what my program does is it invites people to go to that deep inner life and take some time to discover and explore for yourself who you are, why you're here, and not just be able to identify it, but then be able to articulate it and communicate it effectively, and then leverage it in your leadership.
That is so brilliant. And I think when your mother asked you that, you should have told her a superhero. Because the way you're leading is as a superhero, because you're encouraging people to go inside and find out who you really are. And it's in there. It's in there. Maybe it's buried a little bit, but each and every one of us came here with maybe not one ability, but many abilities. And I look back, to my peers, and they were kind of pigeonholed or forced into what you're supposed to be. Back then, girls could be a teacher or a nurse,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't know about that. But, the world has opened a little bit. And I think another thing I think too is we change over the years as to who we are and what we want to be. Something's not fulfilling anymore. Health insurance wasn't fulfilling. There were other things that I wanted to move towards to be fulfilled. And I think you're making that okay for people.
Well, thank you. Honor me, Nicole. You absolutely honor me. And it's so funny that you mentioned about superhero, because I think in that opening part of the chapter where I share a little bit about that story of when my mom asked that of me, I think I mentioned that, I was just 4 or 5 years old, and I was watching reruns of The Lone Ranger and Superman, and I probably did want to be a superhero back then. But thank you, you honor me.
Yeah,
You
and
are
and a
just awesome.
superhero can be defined many ways. And a superhero is someone who helps people find themselves.
Mhm.
Because not a lot of people are even willing. They don't think about that, but they might not be willing to take the time. And when someone is asked, you ask for advice, they're going to tell you their opinion. They're never going to tell you, well, you know what you're here for. Why don't you go inside and find it? And I think to direct people back to self is, right now, it's still very brave, but it's so telling of the kind of person you are, because you understand that each and every one of us have a mission, have a love, have a heartfelt need, underlying need to help people. I really feel that sometimes we're dumbed down a bit, but that was, I was kind of that corporate person. I
Mhm.
was taught to do something, not led to do something.
Exactly. And I just want to observe how perceptive you are, because I can't tell you how many leaders who go into a program like this that I work with and introduce this topic of life mission and leadership philosophy. How many, and we're talking about, everyone from frontline to C-suite, and these are oftentimes leaders in their 30s and 40s, and they will tell me, no one in my whole life up till now has ever invited me or asked me to sit down and work on who am I and why am I here and what are the values that support all that. And so for so many people, this is foreign. And when they start to work at it, it's like a window and door of fresh air to their life, and leadership opens up. It's like, I didn't know I could wake up every day with this kind of inspiration and focus. And when hardships and challenges come, to have something strong to lean on and get me and others through that. I mean, it's a powerful process.
Yeah, and you're empowering people. And that is something that's really special. So, and I know we're at the end of our time here, but you've dropped so many nuggets today that are really amazing. Is there one thing you would like people to know about themselves that they could take away, a big takeaway about self? What would you tell them?
The big takeaway that comes from both my personal beliefs and from ICF coaching is that you already have everything you need inside of you. As a consultant and coach, I'm just there to help you see it and bring
Wow,
it out, flower it, nurture it, and as you were talking about, Nicole, evolve and grow. But you have everything you need.
I love that. I love that. And it's really important that people get a hold of you. What's the best way to contact you?
Um, Best way is probably through my website, www alanmikolaj.com. Whatever that is.
I did my name too. That way I'll never forget.
ALANM as in Mary, IKOL, A as in Apple, J as in Jack.com. There's a contact page there and a whole plethora of different ways to get to know me and what I do. And just give me a call, send me an email, and let's get connected. Set up a discovery conversation. I'd love to meet you.
That's so awesome. Thank you for taking the time today to meet with our viewers, with fellow change book authors. I'm just honored to have you here, and that's some of the best, most heartfelt information that I've heard in a long time. So thank you for being here, Alan.
Oh, Nicole, you and Rachel are just angels. I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for everyone else, when you see me, you know it's Monday, and happy Monday. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Nicole Harvick, and this is my co-host,
Rachel Best. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.